constituents. Today's topic, we're going to be speaking about international travel outside the United States. That is outside the 50 states. Globally, we are speaking international. The CDC, which is the federal government agency, is recommending two very important factors that you need to consider before traveling abroad. The first one is that you need to check that country's statistics. For example, Spain. Look at what their travel requirements are. And there are two requirements, one for entering into their country and one departing from their country. Okay. The second thing you want to take into consideration is what is the vaccination rate of those in that country, those who have been vaccinated compared to those who have not been vaccinated, to determine which is high risk and low risk before you decide to go internationally to another country. The CDC also recommends that if you have not received your vaccination, that you should not fly abroad, but instead you should stay home until you are fully vaccinated. Until you are fully vaccinated, then it is recommended you can travel. Now, again, I would like to use Spain as an example. So if you live in Rhode Island and you decide to go to Spain for a vacation, it is important to remember that you check the website to find out what their government requires in terms of travel restrictions and requirements to enter their country and also to depart their country. Requirements such as, do they require vaccination? Do they require a vaccination card to be shown? Do they require, self-quarantining and so forth? Because each country will have different regulations. I also recommend that you look at what's known as the World Global Vaccine Tracking, which basically shows the percentage of each country in terms of their population of who has been vaccinated and the numbers that have not been vaccinated, which I'm going to share with you shortly. For example, when we talk about Spain, those that were fully vaccinated is at 86%. Canada is at 76%. Japan is at 76% as well. Brazil is vaccinated, which is located in South America, is at 61%. And then the United States is at 59% fully vaccinated. Russia is vaccinated at 36% fully vaccinated. So look at those numbers. Now, what do they mean? So the higher the number of people vaccinated means the lower the risk of contracting COVID-19, where perhaps on the lower end of those that are vaccinated means the higher the risk of contracting COVID-19 while visiting that country. So when you look at Russia, for example, it's 36%. There's a high risk that you could contract COVID-19 while being there on vacation, okay, even though you are fully vaccinated. Now, those who have not been vaccinated have a more of a horrific chance of catching COVID-19 without a doubt. Also, keep in mind that you will need to be fully masked at all times in public when you're flying. Now, before you depart from the country that you're visiting, for example, Spain, let's say, for example, you're there for 2 weeks and you're ready to depart to come back to the United States. Everyone, regardless of whether they are vaccinated or not, will be required to take a COVID test before departing that country to come back home to the United States. Those who are fully vaccinated must have their test taken 3 days prior to the departure, 72 hours. So for example, let's say that you're using December the 14th as your departure date, that you're coming back to the United States and Rhode Island. Okay, you need to have your test taken between December the 10th and the 11th, because it has to fit within the guidelines of 72 hours in order for you to get your results to show to the airports that you are ready to fly back to the United States. and also show the United States upon entry that you're, for example, TSA or whatever, before they're allowed for you to go into the country, that you are negative. If you are positive, you will not be allowed to travel back into the United States until you are well. Now, for those of you who are not vaccinated, you must take your test one day, that is 24 hours prior to your departure. So that means if you're flying and coming back into the country on December 14th, you must be tested on the 13th. Okay, and they have what they call a rapid antigen test, which you can get your results within 2 to 3 hours. If you show that you are negative, you will be allowed to travel back into the United States. And if you are positive, you will have to remain in that country until you are rid of your COVID-19. Now, those who are fully vaccinated upon your arrival back to the States and you're negative, you will not have to self-quarantine. Okay, you'll be allowed to go back to your home and out into public again. Now, those who have not been vaccinated will be required to self-quarantine upon their arrival back to the United States, even though they are negative. Okay, and they have to self-quarantine for 7 days upon their arrival back home. So if you're coming back home on December the 14th, upon your arrival to the United States, you will have to self-quarantine for 7 days. And then you have to take another test to make sure that you are still negative. Okay, remember, you will self-quarantine for 7 days and take a test, be negative before you're allowed to go out into public again. Okay, naturally, whether you are vaccinated or unvaccinated, all people, regardless of what status you're in, must be fully maxed at all times while in a travel status on the planes, and also follow the guidelines of each of the destinations that you are traveling, whether they require a mask or not, outdoors and indoors. I personally would mask at all times, okay, just to be on the safe side, because you would never know, even though you are fully vaccinated, you can still contract it from someone else in another country because the variants are different. So I would recommend wearing a mask at all times, especially when you're indoors or outdoors in another country. Now, if you're visiting friends or family and you're in a small, area and they've all been vaccinated, it might be a little safer to take your mask off. But those who are not vaccinated should keep their mask on at all times, regardless of where you're visiting. Okay, so those are the things you need to be aware of before you fly into another country. Now, recently, President Biden just opened up international travel to come into the United States and granted permission to 33 countries back in November. So these 33 countries that are allowed to travel into the United States, the United States made it clear to those 33 countries, letting them know that the people who come into the United States must be fully vaccinated. Okay, so whether fully vaccinated by the definition of first dose and second dose, and 2 weeks after the second dose, or the first dose if it's Johnson & Johnson, okay, they must show proof of vaccination. And the United States, as you know, has 3 recognized facilities, which is Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. However, the United States does recognize what the World Health Organization recognizes in terms of other countries, in terms of vaccines that they're using above and beyond the 3 brands. Okay, they have a total of 8. 5 of them are not mentioned, but the 3 of them are what the 3 are used in the United States. So they have a total of 8. I'm not going to give you the names of those. I am going to share that with you on a paper that I'm going to show on the screen. It'll show you the total of the 8 brands. Here they are as follows. Now you're aware of what those 5 other additional vaccines are that come from another country. Make sure that they are aware that if they have received their vaccination, one of those 8 companies, they will be recognized. Okay, even though they are different brands. Okay, so if anybody has anything outside of those 8 brands, they will not be allowed to come into this country. Okay, they will have to speak to their physicians or their healthcare providers and so forth to see about how they go about in order to get entry into the United States. Lastly, pertaining to your vaccine cards, okay, I highly recommend that the vaccine cards be brought with you, okay, along with your important documents such as your driver's license, your passport, your ID, your credit card, and so forth. Keep all those documents together. Okay, the authorities, like the TSA or this Border Patrol, you know, or other authorizing agencies may ask you to submit that for proof of entry. Okay, I recommend that prior to you leaving, that you make 3 or 4 sets of copies of each of those documents, meaning your credit card, your passport, your driver's license, and so forth, your state ID, your vaccine cards, your credit cards, to make sure that you have extra copies of those, your work ID card, etc., to identify who you are, and also even your social security card as well. Okay, perhaps even your birth certificate. Don't bring the original one with you in terms of your birth certificate, but just bring it for identification purposes only. 2 or 3 copies you should leave at home before you leave to go to your destination. Bring 2 of them with you. One you would leave at the hotel where you're staying at, or the house that you're staying at. The other one you carry on your personal belonging. So in case you lose your wallet or your passport that you're carrying with you, or someone, you know, pickpockets you, or you lose your bag, or whatever the case may be, you will have a second backup copy that is left back at your hotel or the place you are staying. So you will still be able to get out of the country and return back to the United States. Okay? Because if you don't do this, it will create, you know, other problems where it would be more difficult to come back into the country without these required documents. So please make extra copies. So these are the things that you should be aware of when you're traveling internationally. If you have any questions and you need some more information in terms of how this is applicable to the countries that you are traveling, I suggest that you go to the Rhode Island Department of Health and look at their travel to and out of Rhode Island. And on that website, they will show you the listing of all those countries. Now, most of them are CDC approved for international. That's on the CDC website. That will lead you to go to those links as well. There's lots of valuable information there in terms of what's going on in that country. Those are, you know, what the percentages are for vaccination and unvaccinated. And that color map that I shared with you, the dark colors mean that there's a high risk of COVID-19, which is indicative that it's not a safe country to travel to. Those that are lighter in shades of colors are safer to travel to. So look at that before you travel and make your decision. Now, the website address to look at all this information is as follows below. Or you can call the Rhode Island information line, and their phone number is as follows. If you prefer to get more information from me, feel free to contact me, Mike Baer, at the Rhode Island Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and I will be more than happy to share any information I have with you. My video phone number is as follows, which is listed below. And if you want to send me an email, the following email is my email as well, listed below. Thank you. And safe travels. And those of you who have not been vaccinated, we encourage you to go do so if you want to travel to another country. Thank you again.